Im Tetiv is the gematria of 431. It means if you improve. Dear ones, this is what the Creator said to Cain. He said, if you improve, all will be well. You will be restored. And we recognize in Leviticus chapter 5, verse 1, that it says, and if a soul sins. The word for soul is nephesh. And it's saying if a soul sins. So we have the gematria of 431 with Im Tetiv, and we have the gematria of 430 with nephesh. And if we add the Creator, the Aleph, with the nephesh, then we have the gematria of 431. So we recognize that when we do the right thing, that's like adding the Aleph to the nephesh, to the soul. So Cain wasn't willing to give anything to the Creator of value, only spoiled flax seeds. And so, dear ones, if we fall into that same category of being stingy and of being overly frugal, and we put a fist to the Creator, okay, the Bible tells us how to knock. The Hebrew Scriptures tell us to open our hand. And the concept of opening our hand is to give to those who are not as fortunate as us. And so when we give, of course, we need to give something of value. Our time might be valuable. Look, I do a lot of courses at B'nai Noach Torah Institute, and my time is valuable. But I'm sure there's individuals whose time is much more valuable. And I recognize there's individuals that own material things, and they may give them away. It may not be of any real value to them, yet it could benefit someone else. Well, that's fine, and that's good to give these things away, yet we need to give things that are valuable to us. That is how we raise our neshama. That's how we add the olive to the neshama. Now, when we were speaking about Cain and Abel, and when we were speaking about Adam and Eve, we were talking about bloodless sacrifices. But when we move from the days of Noach forward, we recognize that there were burnt offerings. But we recognize that even though there are burnt offerings, that it is not mandatory. God does not force us to bring a burnt offering. We've already discussed the female sheep and how costly it would be. And so, dear ones, we know that in Leviticus 5 that we're told that if we sin, we need to confess our sin and we need to bring a female sheep. But if it turns out we don't have the financial means, which most of us don't have, to afford a sheep on a regular basis, then we can bring 2 pigeons and 2 turtle doves. But if it turns out that we don't have the means to afford 2 pigeons and 2 turtle doves, we can bring just simply a little fine flour. Isn't that amazing? And so we return back to the Mincha tribute. And here we are, we're bringing a Mincha offering this time. And this Mincha offering, we're not saying tribute now, we're saying that this is a sin offering. And the Torah clearly states in Leviticus that if you bring this offering of a pure flour, a fine flour, and give it to the Kohen, that your sins will be forgiven you. Now, of course, that's contingent upon confessing. That's contingent upon reversing our previous course. That's contingent upon us making a plan not to repeat that. Then we're restored to harmony. We're returned to the path of observance, the path of righteousness. No shedding of blood required. David said that if we just confess with our mouth that God doesn't require a sacrifice, just a contrite and a broken, a humble spirit. This is what God requires. So we recognize in our studies of how does God forgive sin, that there's many ways, many avenues that one can follow. But I can assure you of one thing, that when the writers of the book of Hebrews wrote the words in Hebrews 9:22, and almost all things are by the law purged with blood, and without shedding of blood is no remission of sin. I can assure you that that is not true. That is not correct. Because as we've already seen, most of us cannot bring a blood sacrifice. Most of us can only afford just a simple little matzah to give to our Creator. Dear ones, I want to thank you for joining us.